Demonstrations are planned at universities across Istanbul today amid calls for wider protests over the arrest and detention of President Erdogan's top rival, the Istanbul mayor, Ekrem İmamoğlu. On Wednesday, students and protesters clashed with riot police in the capital, Ankara. As police deployed tear gas and water cannon on crowds in the capital, protesters also gathered in cities across Turkey. Despite a government ban which extends online, police say they detained 37 suspects for allegedly making what they called provocative social media posts. Mr. İmamoğlu was set to be named as the presidential candidate for the opposition Republican People's Party, known as the CHP. The government say they are cracking down on corruption and accuse the opposition of links to a terrorist group. The opposition say this is about Erdogan consolidating his power. Our reporter Emily Withers brought us up to date.
So I think what's interesting is that İmamoğlu may have spent the night in custody, but it's the opposition party that still controls the municipality here in Istanbul. So when people woke up this morning and commuted into work using the metro, they heard the voice of İmamoğlu blaring out on speakers. There are already calls today for more large demonstrations to happen at universities across the city. There's calls for more wider protests, particularly here in Istanbul and in Ankara. As you said there were large crowds, tens of thousands out on the streets in Istanbul and Ankara last night who clashed with police. But the numbers still aren't quite large enough to really put major political pressure on the President Erdogan. We may see the protests grow as we move into the weekend, but Turks know that it's very risky to protest here in Turkey. There are many detentions that happen here, and they may not want to take that risk. We're also seeing arrests related to online media. So the Turkish authorities have said that they detained 37 suspects already for allegedly making what they called provocative social media posts over the detention of İmamoğlu. We also expect that there will be more arrests of opposition figures in the coming days. Meanwhile, when it comes to İmamoğlu, we know that the authorities here have now seized his construction company that he co-owns. And it may be that in the coming days, he is replaced with a government appointee pending his investigation.
Tell us a bit more about Ekrem İmamoğlu and why the concern around him from President Erdogan.
Ekrem İmamoğlu is incredibly popular. He's very charismatic. He appeals to people across the political divide. And on Sunday, there was supposed to be a major opposition voting round where they were going to name Ekrem İmamoğlu as their presidential candidate in future elections. The opposition say that that's still going ahead despite what happens to Ekrem İmamoğlu. And, you know, this is part of a months-long crackdown that we've seen here in Turkey where many opposition mayors, business leaders and journalists have been rounded up in a nationwide crackdown. And, you know, İmamoğlu wouldn't be the first political leader to be put in jail. Just earlier this month, the leader of a Turkish opposition party was arrested and detained. He's currently in jail right now, pending a trial on charges of insulting President Erdogan and inciting hatred. He too has called the charges political. And this is all part of Erdogan trying to shore up power, potentially ahead of early elections.